Hey everyone, Off the Mic Sports Network here, an NBA video here. We haven't done a lot of these this season, and it's not a Cleveland Cavs video because, what can be said about the Cleveland Cavaliers, the best team in the NBA. They've been steamrolling people. But I want to talk about the Sacramento Kings because as a guy who roots for the Cleveland Browns in the NFL, I know terrible organizations when I see them. And what transpired with a guy that I've gotten to know as the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers twice in Mike Brown, and also the head coach of the Lakers. I live in LA. So I've seen Mike Brown and what he can do as a head coach. And he did a really remarkable job in Sacramento. Sacramento had not been to the playoffs in over a decade. 2 years ago, he took them to the playoffs and took them to a Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors, who ended up winning the NBA championship that season. So that's that. So anyway, the Sacramento Kings had lost 5 in a row, and on Friday, they fire Mike Brown at the record of 13-18. They were just 3 games back of being in a play-in situation. Mind you, we just passed Christmas. That's not even the part that I'm most infuriated about. So Mike Brown's fired. 13-18, 5-game losing streak. They lose on a 4-point play to the Detroit Pistons, High Lane. Like one of the only Detroit Pistons fans that I know. They're having a great season. Lane, if you're watching this video is kind of inspired by you because I needed to talk about this story because the story is just so ridiculous. So anyway, the Kings did a practice. They lost this game to the Detroit Pistons on a 4-point play in the last few seconds. The star De'Aaron Fox committed the cardinal sin of fouling a guy shooting a 3. Guy makes it. Jaden Ivey and hits the free throw, and the Kings lose the game. Pistons went on the road. The Pistons have been a pleasant surprise under former Cavs coach JB Bickerstaff. I promise I'm not trying to make this video about the Cavs, but there's a lot of former Cavs connections in this video. So the Kings lose the game, go into the next day. Mike Brown runs a full practice. He meets with the media for 20 minutes, and an hour later he's fired. Before they're going to get on the damn plane to go to LA to play the Lakers on Saturday night and play LeBron, who just won in Golden State. What in the world is going on? The best, Doug Christie's going to be the interim coach, which I actually think is kind of cool because I remember Doug Christie when he played for the Kings. But the most successful coach that this organization has had since Rick Adelman almost 20 years ago, and you fire him on a 5-game losing streak, and you don't even give him the decency of telling him, hey, you don't even tell him before the fact. You don't even tell him after the game. You let him run a full practice, meet the media as the head coach, and then fire him. Now, I know organizations that are dysfunctional. I've seen it with the Jets this year with Robert Saleh and their organization, the Jets running it based off of Madden rankings. And that's a whole separate issue because they've literally been in bed with Aaron Rodgers the whole season, and that blew up in their face. I've seen terrible organizations across all of sports. See it in the NFL. I root for the Cleveland Browns. I said it before. But what the Sacramento Kings did here just reeks of terrible ownership because under no circumstances, when you have a successful head coach like a Mike Brown, who has been to an NBA Finals, he took the Cavs there. He had been with the Cavs multiple times. He went to the Lakers. And then he coached under Steve Kerr as an assistant coach and won a championship. And then took this organization on the verge of the playoffs in back-to-back years. They made the play-in tournament. They didn't make the playoffs. But they were the 3rd best team in the Western Conference his first season in Sacramento. Just because they were falling apart and had a bad stretch of and a horrible, horrible loss to the Detroit Pistons. That's not to disrespect Detroit. It's just the circumstances of how that game ended, where you're up by 3, you give up a 3-pointer, you foul the guy, and then he makes the shot, and then he hits the free throw to win the game. Like, none of this makes any sense because the way that you're supposed to do this, for one, Mike Brown shouldn't have been fired in the first place because there is no track record of showing that there is regression to the point of you need to fire the guy. In the middle of his 3rd season there, when you haven't had a successful head coach there since Rick Adelman 20 years ago. And it was fitting that a guy that they fired all over the phone, and Michael Malone, who ended up winning an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets, spoke out very adamantly about this on Friday prior to the Nuggets facing the Cavs. Again, I'm not trying to make this video about the Cavs, but the point here is when you have terrible ownership, Vivek Ramadive, I think Shaq might even be a part owner, but I don't even know how involved he is in decisions. He may have sold his stake. And if he did, good on you, Shaq, because this organization with a beautiful new arena, rabid fans, it's really just disgusting to witness a situation like this transpire right after Christmas, right after a debilitating loss. And then, like I said, you let this guy run a practice, meet with the media for 20 minutes, and then fire him on the way to get to flying to Los Angeles to play a game. What are we doing? What are we doing? If Sacramento ends up being the worst team in the league, I hope they don't get Cooper Flagg because they don't deserve him, because this is stupid. This is stupid. And they got to consider like whether De'Aaron Fox is like, a superstar, and he hasn't seemed really engaged this year. They bring in DeMar DeRozan. They have a lot of good young players, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. Like they've got good players on this team. And Mike Brown was rounding them into shape, and they had a good trajectory. Yes, they've fallen off since that first good season under him, but a 5-game losing streak and a bad loss doesn't warrant firing a guy before the turn of the new year in his 3rd season. That's what I don't like about this situation. It's another sign of bad organization and bad leadership. And this is you knew this was happening because this has been the Sacramento Kings since the Maloof brothers sold this team. That's like 20 years ago. Like I said, I remember Sacramento Kings when Doug Christie was playing, when Vlade Divac was playing, Peja Stojakovic, Mike Bibby, go back to White Chocolate, Jason Williams. Like, those teams were fun. They caused havoc here in Los Angeles for the Lakers, and a lot of my Laker fans who watch on this video, and you could get at me in the comments, Laker fans aren't going to feel sorry for the Kings, or as Shaq once called them, the Sacramento Queens. But this is just, like, I haven't been this... I was pretty pissed off about the Robert Saleh situation. Mike Brown's a really good coach. He's accomplished a lot. It hasn't been pretty this year, but he didn't deserve to get fired. And he damn sure didn't deserve to get fired in the manner that he did. And that was what was more disrespectful to me. So I hope Mike Brown lands on his feet. Maybe he ends up back in Golden State on the bench next to Steve Kerr. I actually think that would be a good spot for him. And maybe he gets a head coaching job again. I still think he's a good head coach. He did a really good job with it. I mean, this guy won coach of the year 2 years ago because of that amazing season and getting to be the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. Like, I don't get it, man. I don't. So anyway, I will talk to you guys down the road. We'll have more content here. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about the Cavs a little bit more. We're heading towards the new year. We'll have CFP conversation. We'll also have wrestling content. A lot of great stuff out here on the channel. Perfect blend of sports and sports entertainment here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. I will talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.